Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Napoleon Hill Ezine video newsletter. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Ray Stendall and I'm joined with Judy Williamson from the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Judy, so lovely to see you again.
I am happy to be here, Ray. I'm glad you're here too.
So in this video, we are going to talk a lot about really how we move forward in the face of adversity. So Judy, why don't you share a little bit about this topic based on this Ezine discussion that we have?
Well, the theme for this Ezine was kind of put out there by our guest writer, our guest columnist, and his name is Ellie Alperstein. And he was talking about Hanukkah and what it really means. And one of the ways he ended that article that he wrote was a quote and an idea about providence. And it got me to thinking about my experience with providence that made me write what I wrote in the particular article that we have for this week. Providence is something that many of us feel that we really can't rely on. You know, it's like almost like we're a puppet and somebody's pulling our strings or something like that. But I saw it back in my own life, and I wanted to share a story. In a former job, I worked with a person who was given a scholarship. She had a donor, and the scholarship provided to her the opportunity to go to law school, and she was very eager to do that. This wasn't a young student. This was a person who was mature, who had several degrees, who wanted to go into that area of public law, and she gave it her best, her absolute best. And after the first year of being in the program, she didn't make the grade point average. In fact, she was 1/10 of a percentage point below where she needed to be, and she was not invited back to go to the second year. And she was devastated. And as we talked, she said, "I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why I couldn't make the grade. I didn't make the cut, etc., etc." But then the interesting thing was, she said, "I'm a sister." She was a nun. She is a nun. She says, and the order that she belongs to is the Sisters of Providence. And she said, "I have to believe there's greater things, better things out there for me." Well, she left that position. She went on to take another position. And within a very, very short time, she skyrocketed up to the second in command of a large, very, very prominent diocese. And she is today the chancellor of that diocese. And I was amazed. I said, you know, she put her faith in Providence, and Providence did close the door on her, but it opened another one that was even better for her. And if we think about our own lives, sometimes those doors are closed on us too. And, you know, we keep pushing at those doors and say, "I'll open the damn door," you know, and the door won't open. And we just need to kind of take a little space and sit back and say, well, maybe there's another way I'm supposed to go. And when we look for that other door, that's where our dream is, right behind that door. And I know you're going to take a different view on this, but that is my view, because it has happened to me too, several times in my life. And I've been frustrated. I've said, oh, I just need to finish this program. And then I didn't, and I went another direction. And it's made all the difference to me, as the poet said, Robert Frost. And so I would encourage our viewers to be open-minded, to sometimes accept what we might term as failure, or the closing of a door, as Napoleon Hill says, and the opening of another door, because behind that second or third or fourth door on down the line, there may be the greatest wish fulfilled that you could ever dream. So that's my take on the article, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about all this.
I love that story. That's great. You know, and as I was thinking about it and thinking about the topic of our Ezine, I really wanted to focus on that word struggle to begin with. And we kind of mentioned this a little bit in the last video, but when I think of struggle and I think of different metaphors to explain struggle, I immediately think of an acorn that comes from a tree. And if we think about this life of an acorn, this acorn, it falls off this tree, it essentially has to build roots. And as it builds roots, and eventually it starts to grow, and it pushes through the earth, and it goes against gravity, and it basically goes against all the odds to ultimately grow into this beautiful, magical tree. And I think that's a great metaphor for us to think about life. And we think about how there is, without the struggle, there is no growth, as you had mentioned earlier on before we started recording. And I think that's important and key for people to realize. Now, in specific terms, taking a look at this Ezine, I really enjoyed the quote at the very top from our guest writer here. And I'd like to just go over that. "You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word. It is victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory, however long and hard the road may be, for without victory there is no survival. Let that be realized. No survival for the British Empire. No survival for all that the British Empire has stood for. No survival for the urge and the impulse of the ages that mankind will move forward toward its goal. Winston Churchill said this here. And the reason I wanted to read this is because as I read this and I started to think about how we move forward in the face of adversity, I think one of the basic psychological ideas that has been studied over the years is the whole notion of joy and pain. Well, clearly, Winston Churchill in this address was emphasizing the pain of what will happen if we do not have victory. And that got me thinking a little bit more about realizing that when we need to move forward in the face of adversity and we're lacking the motivation and we're trying to figure out how to move forward, and because we are not in that right state of mind, we have to realize that we are trying to move forward because we are trying to ultimately avoid a pain in our life or get closer to a joy that we want to get closer to. And both are equally powerful from a motivation perspective. So I want to suggest, and I heard this phrase recently, I don't know where I picked it up, but it's a why that makes you cry. I want to suggest you come up with a why that makes you cry for why it is you want to move forward. Who in your life stands to benefit from you moving forward in the direction that you have selected? And really emotionalize that. And that's the key word. It's to emotionalize it, because the more emotionally invested you are in that why that makes you cry, that's connected to your definite purpose, it's going to serve as a magnet to pull you forward. And at the same time, like we can learn from Winston Churchill here, we can also understand why and realize that the future we want to create for ourselves is different, obviously, than the past that we have gone through and the present that we're going through today. And the more that we can make this contrast between the why that makes us cry and the present and the past that we're trying to change from, because as we know, we can either grow or decline, but we cannot stay still. So through these mental tools, you can move forward and be able to leverage the power of joy and pain. And those are some of the things that I think I use in my life and I think could be useful to our viewers. Judy, what do you think?
I think so. And I think the struggle is essential for the growth, just like you said. And we forget that sometimes because you say struggle's not so nice, you know, it doesn't feel so great, but the joy is there at the end of the struggle. And it's like running a triathlon or being in a marathon and coming out even at the end of the whole thing a winner. And we can continue in that process. But I still want to remind our viewers that sometimes, we may pray for certain things. We may ask a higher power to give us guidance. And the answer may be no. And until we accept that answer as no, we won't look for those other opportunities that are out there. That's why you have to watch closely for things that may be coincidences or synchronicities or messages from your higher self, your inner self. And that's why journaling and record keeping and things like that do help, because they will make you more aware of those little messages that you're bringing forward that may say to you, I really don't want this goal. I want a higher goal, or I want a different goal. So no, one of the suggestions is know yourself. Shakespeare said that, and we've heard that over and over again, to thine own self be true. But you have to know who you are first and foremost before you can be true to yourself. So find out who you are and then work from that inner point of view to create that absolutely perfect life that it is that you desire.
Beautiful. I love that. And as you said that, and I was thinking about, again, that word struggle, I thought back to the story you told about climbing the mountain in our last video, and I have climbed mountains too. I went to Yosemite Park a few years ago and I climbed that mountain, and one of the things I wanted to just share as an analogy or metaphor for our viewers is I want you to imagine you have two scenarios. Scenario one is you can prepare and you can do everything to climb this mountain, and it may take you 10 hours to climb it, and it's 20 miles long, and you're trucking along one foot in front of the other, and you get to the top. Scenario number two is that I pick you up in a helicopter, and in 15 minutes we go to the top of the mountain and I drop you off. In scenario two, you had no struggle to get to the top of the mountain. No. And in scenario one, you had the struggle to get to the top of the mountain. It built you. You conditioned yourself. You could not be a different. You're totally a different person, mentally and physically, to be able to do that. So herein lies the notion and the value of struggle. You take away the struggle, and what happens? Your satisfaction and the fulfillment at the end also goes away. So keep that in mind the next time you face a struggle. And just put one foot in front of the other, and you don't need to have the easy button to get there, because easy button doesn't lead to character.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I couldn't say it better myself, Ray.
Well, thank you so much, Judy, and I'd like to thank our audience. And once again, we'd like to remind everyone that we are happy to take your questions and your comments and ideas for new videos. So please write us an email. The email is displayed at the bottom of this screen, ezinequestions@naphill.org. And we will get your questions and comments, and we will be reviewing these questions that we get in and comments at the beginning of our videos. So let's be interactive and share with us what's on your mind so we can continue to give you more and more value. So with that, Judy, thank you so much for taking the time today to make this video.
Thank you, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week.